Welcome to the Human Factors and Ergonomics Hub, a series of educational podcasts that showcase the connection between human capabilities and good work design, brought to you by the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia. Well, here we are at the HFE Hub again, and it's so great to have you on board. I'm Sharon Todd, and today I'm chatting with Craig Fletcher. Now, he has 25 years' experience in the area of ergonomics and human factors, both in Australia and in the UK. He's experienced in conducting human factors assessments for a broad range of industries and applications. He's focused on delivering practical solutions to human factors problems. His specialties include human factors in transport, train design, product and interface design, usability testing, the built environment, as well as safety and management systems, safety critical sectors and defence. Craig, it's so great to be chatting with you today on the HFE Hub, and I just wondered maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Sharon. Thanks for having me, and hello everyone who's listening. But yeah, so Craig Fletcher. Human factors ergonomist professional for 25 plus years now, so quite a long time. And I run a company called Ergonomy, and we obviously specialise in human factors and ergonomics, and we work across the transport and healthcare and defence sectors. So I've been doing that for over 15 years now. So that one's kind of my main thing, but I was, thinking about how I got kind of attracted into human factors and ergonomics in the first place. And I think for me, I kind of love science and I love people. And I sort of wanted to put those two things together. And because first out of school, my brother did engineering. So I started doing engineering. And I liked it. I liked the science, but I just didn't think it was quite right for me. And I ended up doing a bit of a switcheroo over to occupational therapy, so quite a different thing. But I kind of really wanted to kind of get the people side working. Overall, I wouldn't say I loved every part of that course, but there was the ergonomics type stream in there, which I really loved. And so I just hooked onto that really, and kind of got through that. And then coming out of uni, got into more occupational ergonomics, industrial ergonomics type things, a bit more work health and safety, and then progressed through and eventually did a master's in applied science and technology in ergonomics at UNSW here in Sydney, and then just kind of kept going from there really. But yeah, so for me it's just a lot about I love the science. I love kind of making a difference to things and making things better. And I kind of like the power you have from having generating scientific data and evidence. It gives you freedom to have some, creativity in terms of your recommendations. There's kind of a lot of power behind that scientific background to help enhance design. So, yeah, that's kind of the background, I guess, or where I got to where I am.
So that's the Craig Fletcher story.
That's right.
So you run a business where you've got several consultants, obviously working in different areas. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the kind of projects that they work on.
Yeah, sure. So we've got 8 of us at the moment. We've got 5 in Sydney and 3 based in Melbourne. As I said at the start, we work across defence and transport and healthcare. We've got a lot of different projects on at the moment. So I can speak to a couple that I'm actually doing at the moment. So in terms of, interesting enough, on a defence project I'm working on, I'm actually heading to far north Queensland on Friday this week for a week of observing an army exercise up there, which is pretty exciting. And so, so it's a cool project where, so the army, who's obviously used to functioning on land a bit more than sea, but they also do function at sea, and they've bought a whole bunch of new they're in the process of procuring some landing craft to help support their what they call littoral operations, which is kind of around the water operations. So it's a cool project where we're looking at trying to collect all the human factors, risks and opportunities around the procuring of these vessels. And again, it's like any, large-scale procurement project, the engineers are very technical in their focus, and they're making sure they meet all the technical requirements. And so our job, again, I guess with any ergonomics and human factors project, is to make sure all those human factors are incorporated and captured into the design. And this is a good one because we're getting to come in right at pretty much the concept stage of this project, and hopefully get our requirements and HF issues and considerations into the mix early. So, yeah, so heading up there for a week for part of that project. Stuff around healthcare and medical. So we do a lot kind of around more the medical product development space. So we work with small and large, I guess, medical companies, and look at doing making sure all the human factors, again, are integrated into the product design for a healthcare product. And typically that's got to follow quite a stringent guideline process from the American system. And so there's a whole series of steps that are put into that process around identifying user cases and high-risk scenarios. Then there's a lot of user testing involved in that process around during the process as well, formative testing and summative testing at the end. So, yeah, so we set ourselves up, and we've got kind of a pretty cool usability lab that we set up with cameras and microphones, and we record the sessions and stream that footage live across to the stakeholders watching it, so they can see the actual users interacting with their products, and which is a pretty powerful process, hey, because they can actually see it. They, we can write a report and tell them at the end, but if they can actually see people struggling to work out what button to push or how to use something, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, simulation. You obviously you use this, so do you use it a lot? Obviously with medical products possibly, but...
Yeah, so medical products, and I mean the other space we've been working in is using virtual reality as well as a design and a training tool. So, so we've been working on an interesting project for a while on suicide prevention, actually. So a little bit of a different area, but I think it's one of those things. I think as an HF person, as a company, I don't know, I feel like we probably all share that across HF professionals to some degree, that there's a sense of, if we just, are given the chance to try and apply our methods, kind of like we feel like we could solve any problem we put our mind to. And so that's one. So suicide is one, and I guess it's one of those things that's affected a lot of people and their life somewhere along the line. And so we sort of approached it, thought, let's just do it was just a pro bono research project, really, just on the side. We just thought, let's have a look at the issues and just try and understand if there's any sort of things we could see from a human factors or a human systems integration approach that might kind of help, put some weight of evidence into solving that problem. And we sort of started very broadly across suicide in general. Then we realised that it's pretty big topic, and a lot of other people are doing that with more knowledge than us probably. So, yeah, we ended up focusing it into the railway environment. So one area where we work a lot is rail human factors. And we kind of, as we got involved in that, we did a lot of research around, where suicide is happening, and a lot of it in Sydney does happen at stations. And so we just undertook some more research, and we started to work with Sydney Trains at that point to try and develop what became is basically a training program for station staff to use in an immersive virtual reality environment. So we built like a railway station based on a Sydney station in virtual reality. And we did research and kind of identified a bunch of behaviours that people who were thinking about suicide or self-harm at a station would do, pacing up and down, missing trains. So there's a bunch of things that we identified from researching it. And so we built those characteristics into some avatars within a virtual reality model. And then the principle being, I guess the other part of that research is sort of that bystander effect, or that intervention effect, where the research shows if you can kind of, just basically break someone's, cycle of that process at the time, then they'll kind of, go away. They won't do it, and there's a good chance they won't reattempt necessarily. So, yeah, we thought, okay, there's an opportunity here that we could get station staff trained up, and they have a basic training already. So TrackSafe are a great organisation, and they've got some good kind of, I guess, suicide awareness training for station staff which Sydney Trains and other operators use. But this one was a much more sort of targeted one where they could actually get the experience of walking through the station and being vigilant to actually look at people, try and understand. So you'd look at an avatar and then you kind of click on them and you choose, are they at risk or are they safe, do you think? So they'd make a judgment. And then if they said at risk, then it'd be like a drop-down menu talking about the types of behaviours that potentially the station staff had observed that might indicate that they might, be exhibiting suicidal behaviours. So, so it's a good way to get them to go through, scan the station for vigilance, and then practice identifying people. And then the next stage would be actually taking it that one step further and teaching intervention techniques to actually make, how do you, successfully and safely approach someone in that situation. So, so it's a cool project. So, so we're still working on it actually, and we've got another. It's a bit of a slow burner, but we've got another meeting with Sydney Trains actually at the end of this month to talk about it a bit more. So they haven't started to put it into their training program yet, but they're looking at it. So it hasn't started. And I'm actually heading up to the UK for the RSSB HF Rail Conference in September, so I'm doing a couple of papers, so a quick plug for me there up there. But but also I kind of got a bit involved with the International Trespassing Association based in Paris there, so they want me to come and on my way on that visit and have a chat to them about the same product, and also have a chat to their major rail operator there about integrating it. So so it's quite a cool thing, which really I think would make a difference if it does get going.
Yeah, that is such a cool project. What's the feedback been like from the people that you've put through it so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty positive. So, we've done a few pilots with some station staff, and so each time, they've found they've been quite successful in kind of using it. It's a very immersive, and if you use VR a bit, it's so great for that, because you can hear the trains going by and the noise, you can hear people talking. So far really positive, and I think even kind of what I guess railway operators are looking for is also ways of getting the station staff to be kind of that sort of non-technical skills piece, to get them a little bit more proactive and a bit more out on the platform talking to people. So in a way, even if it didn't teach people to be fantastically good at picking out those behaviours, if it's encouraging people to get out on the platform and kind of go through a process of chatting to people and being just more visible out there, there's kind of an advantage in that. So.
And you mentioned that obviously the second part of this are the interventions, and that'll be important because there's the connection then between the station staff and the train as well, which is the next layer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So the intervention, and I guess that's probably an area we're not experts on. So we've been talking, so we're involved with Suicide Prevention Australia as an organisation, and then they have a number of partners who are like really good people who are, skilled at delivering training around that interaction piece. So, I think for that, we'll sort of work with that sort of group to make sure we get a good intervention there. But so it's a cool one. And so it's kind of in the VR space. And in terms of AI, they're definitely, and we've started to look at it, but there is an opportunity to have, I guess, and they have cameras already monitoring stations, as we know, but a way of developing an algorithm which can start to pick up potentially those behavioural movements, those characteristics, and have it flagged through an AI recognised system, which could alert station staff if they're picking up people who might be at risk based on that algorithm. But it's been looked at in the past. I think issues with just the busyness of stations has made it quite hard. But I think there's still, that technology is getting better, so it's still something we're looking at trying to shoehorn into that system.
I think it's brilliant. And it's interesting that you obviously set this up pro bono. I was going to ask you at the beginning how you got onto this, but
no, we just, it was a pro bono. No, it was something I kind of was pretty passionate about, and I thought, and I think that's a nice thing about having a business and a consultancy. There's the opportunity to give back a little bit, and I think, so it was an issue that there was enough of us within the company who were concerned about it and wanted to make a difference. And we also had someone working for us at the time who was really passionate about that. So it was just a good fit, and it was nice. So we'll see.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Now, you've mentioned as well in Paris coming up soon, trespass. Just explain what that is to me.
Yeah, so there's a whole. I mean, it's obviously, it's an international problem. So we have trespass, which can be just people voluntary, or just wandering around the network basically and accidentally getting hit by trains, or people who are trespassing for vandalism, or people who are trespassing for self-harm. And so there's a group, and they meet. It's an international group, but they meet regularly in Paris, and they just. It's like a working group forum basically, where they'll look at international issues around trespass and suicide, and look at what are some solutions that are being put forward around the world that they can leverage and kind of take forward as a group, really. So, yeah,
that's really interesting. How long have they been around? I wasn't aware of.
I don't know. A fair while, I think. But I'd have to check it. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, one to Google. So yeah,
that's what Google's for.
Yes, exactly.
So I know that you probably can't talk a lot more about your defence project, but maybe we could bounce back to that for a second. Obviously, I was going to ask you, you're looking at the physical as well as the human factors integration into that project. Are you able to talk about any aspect of that project?
Yeah, we probably can a little bit. It's just, so it's like, it's very similar to other similar integration. So in a sense, it's like, designing a new train or a new railway station or a new aeroplane. So it's a similar process in terms of you have, for those vessels, you'll have a wheelhouse, you'll have a bunch of crew. So the pieces are around, it's a number of pieces, but there's the physical design of the space. Can you fit the right number of people in? Can they see all the displays? So all the basic control, basically control room ergonomics, alarm system designs, all the things that might be happening within that environment. How do we design it ergonomically so that, from adjustable height chairs to angles of screens to viewing distances to glare and reflection. So it's an interesting piece because you're doing that, in a pretty, it's a controlled room, but you're out at sea in rough waters and different weather conditions. So there's kind of some other factors happening. And then there's pieces around the new way of working for the Army around being predominantly land-based and operating smaller vessels to something that transition to actually now operating, because at the moment the Navy kind of operate the bigger boats, which still take tanks and logistic vehicles around, but it's that different way of working, into a more longer term periods at sea in much bigger boats, and so that kind of issue around. So we'll touch on training of the personnel as well, things like team working, allocation of functions between the different team members within the wheelhouse and the maintainers, and also the opportunities of where we can also functionally allocate automation basically within the process. So I think the automation piece is quite a large one, and interesting, that sort of one we've done on other defence projects and transport projects, but it's a real, I guess that's where with AI, how it's travelling now is that it's becoming, I guess, a more important piece in a lot of our projects is that, how much do you automate? What's the distribution of tasks between machines and humans? What are humans good at? What are humans bad at? What are machines good at? And vice versa. That always that ongoing risk of getting the machines to automate all the nice little tasks that used to keep humans busy but weren't too taxing, to suddenly then, I guess, not demote or even promote the human to more of a supervisor of that system, which is something we're not very good at for long periods of time. So, it's an interesting piece that's probably getting more prevalent in our projects, and also the way that concept of trust of the automation and how do those systems convey uncertainty to the operator as well. So, again, I think humans are really good if we're even over Zoom or face-to-face, we can kind of, just by raising an eyebrow, we can kind of work out if we're not quite sure, I'm not quite sure what you're saying, or it's not, you're not 100% definite about what you mean. But how do we get the automation of those sensors to transmit that level of uncertainty to the operator. So the human is then confident to make a decision based on, oh yeah, okay, they're probably 80% sure, but we should check these couple of things over here. So yeah, so it just gets, and I guess the bigger the systems and the more complicated, and this one's a complicated one where you got lots of different types of boats talking to each other and operating in big groups and all that kind of cross-team working between platforms. So it's
It sounds really complicated.
Yeah.
So what kind of tools do you use, or what are your favourite tools that you might use? And do you simulate this?
Yeah. Well, simulation is great. I mean, at this stage, it's a lot around the old-fashioned developing task analysis between the roles and what the tasks are and who's doing what and what systems they have to interact with. So, it's at the most basic level, it's still Excel, and typing the old spreadsheet. So, yeah, it starts with that. Obviously, I still think that's a pretty strong method, obviously, in Reliance. So we try and get as many observations and analysis of comparable systems, and then obviously to develop any sort of task analysis of function allocation. There's that, obviously, user engagement. So we'll be running workshops, and so it's probably nothing too fancy, I guess. Is how we do it at this stage, and then with this stuff, we're looking at progressing into kind of low fidelity mock-ups of the wheelhouses kind of sooner than later, and just get them kind of walking through that sort of mocked up environment. So it's pretty lo-fi at the moment, but yeah.
That's okay. I mean, these systems, it's the old spreadsheet turns up quite frequently.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if it's not broke, so yeah.
Don't fix it.
Exactly.
So any other interesting projects that you've been on? I mean, the medical device or medical products, are there particular, you mentioned obviously the American guidance material. Maybe What are you using? What have you got to work with is probably the question.
Yeah. So it's the FDA process. So there's a regulatory body in the US, and the guidance is clear. And you are, by the way, you're definitely talking to the wrong guy in my company about this, because there's someone who is very much more expert than me. But yeah, so there's quite a prescribed way of going through that, which is not an Australian system. So that's a US system. But typically, if someone's developing a medical product, they want it to succeed in the US because that's the biggest market. So it will kind of follow those guidelines, and it's a good setup. And I mean, it's really a clear HSI process where you look at, well, who are the users, define their roles, look at basically a task analysis of typically more high-risk scenarios. You do a human error analysis around and what could be the risks associated with things that could go wrong with the product. And then as the product gets developed, we do a set of formative testing. So there's kind of prescriptions around how many people and how much effort you have to go through in that particular test. And that's formative, it's meant to be iterative. And so the designer will go back and refine the design based on the output of that testing. And then hopefully there might be some iterations of that. And then at the end, there's a thing called summative testing, which should be just the icing on the cake. And in theory, it's not, a tick box, but hopefully everything's been fixed to that point. And so we do the testing there. And there's it's 80%, but it's quite a reasonably high rate of success based on their criteria to go, okay, we can now write a report that supports that product is suitable to take forward.
Okay, and you're working with industrial designers, of course, at that point, because they're doing the mock-ups.
Yeah, that's right. So there could be, I mean, in terms of even formative, often it's quite a decent high-quality model of whatever the product is, and that's summative. It's basically pretty much the finished product. So, yeah, we've done sort of, inhalers and software systems and a whole bunch of stuff for ResMed and Cochlear. So it's quite, it kind of ranges from those bigger companies to more niche, small startups. And I mean, it's an interesting one. The bigger companies kind of get the process pretty well because they've been doing it for a long time, but your smaller startups are sort of a bit more, they kind of want to gloss over all that front end stuff and kind of go, oh, can you just do some summative testing for us on our thing? It's great. So no, we probably should do the front bit, but no, okay, we'll do the summative. And there's a fair few things wrong. So it's kind of like, they've got to go back and start again. But so there's a bit of a ongoing education piece with that sort of stuff. But
get us in early rather than getting us in late.
Yes, exactly. That's right. It's like a mastery project, but so that's good. we're sort of working. We haven't got the other area we're sort of looking at in healthcare is more that bigger system stuff in hospitals and the healthcare system, because there's a real, just looking that that systems thinking around, even fatigue risk management for healthcare workers and authority gradients between doctors and nurses. And, so far we've kind of been focusing on how do we design equipment so that it's, robust and recoverable from human error, so that, if the surgeon or whoever's using that piece of equipment, there's a less chance of them making a mistake. But, I guess that's just one piece of the puzzle there. So it's just trying to get a bit more traction in that field, because I think that's something that definitely could make a difference with there as well.
Yeah, fatigue management, a huge problem. I know, I think I had a quick chat with Anjem Narweed about this, and he was amongst the many fabulous things that Anjem says. He indicated indicating that there's a lot to be learnt from aviation that can translate into health. I'm just wondering where you were thinking of maybe starting with the fatigue management project.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so we've done a fair bit in rail actually in the past. So so we're pretty good across driver rostering and fatigue risk management for network controllers in control rooms and pieces like that. So so we've got experience in it, because there's actually another rail project which I'm working on, which is interesting. It does have fatigue thing to it, but we're actually working with VIDA, which is a Victoria Infrastructure Delivery Agency, and they're rewriting all the signalling system standards for Victoria. So it's a really cool project actually, and they've got a nice. They've taken the opportunity to really think about the specialist engineering, so safety and human factors and sustainability and RAMs and security. And so we've got quite a cool little job where we're looking or supporting how those standards are developed. So by looking at, if you're developing a new signalling system or you're updating a signalling system, so there's a lot of human factor stuff around, just basic things like sighting the signals and, not, putting signals in spots where drivers have to make decisions when they're in a very complex driving positions, etc. So there's stuff like that, and obviously things more like automatic train protection, bringing in those signalling systems has its own suite of HF issues. So what they're trying to do in Victoria is kind of get a new set of signalling standards in, so they're the things that they're given to, a contractor who's now going to redesign a signalling system for MTM or V-Line. They get given this standard. And so our job is to, if you're designing that signalling system, these are the sort of human factors issues that might go wrong or might come up if it's not designed well. So we're working with the signalling developers to make sure that any human factors risks that we can think of for the particular bit of the standard they're working on is actually mitigated by that standard. So there's something in there which calls out, either design-wise, they should do A, B, and C, or they should integrate with human factors on this particular type of thing to make sure that the problem's resolved. So, so it's an interesting project as a sideline to talk about, but there is a fatigue risk management piece around the testing and commissioning and some of the other standards in terms of, concerns around how prescriptive do they get within those standards around mandating work rest hours for drivers or people involved in doing testing commissioning activities, which is kind of known kind of fatigue risk type activities. So we're sort of working with them on that one at the moment, specifically just seeing how we can shoehorn enough. It's just that fine line with the standard between enough guidance to help get them there, but not being so prescriptive that is the only way of doing it, particularly with a testing commissioning type activity, which might range from a couple of days on a weekend to 4 months of continuous work. So you sort of got to keep it a little bit fluid. But but a very interesting area.
How do we translate some of that information into health, do you think?
Yeah, how do we translate that into health? That is a very, very good question. I mean, there's the basic, there's the basic science and like quite a good set of best practice guidance about fatigue risk management in general, and you've got aviation kind of where a lot of it did come from. And so you've kind of got guidance around that already, and I'm sure, and I haven't looked at it, but, hospitals would have to be doing I mean, aviation, again, another example where they're very clearly documenting exactly how long people work for, how long their breaks been, when they last flew, et cetera, et cetera. So the record keeping's really good with that. Yeah, with hospitals, and we're sort of one of those areas which we know is a problem, right? Like, we've got doctor friends in hospitals, and either it's something that's allowed to just get away with it, and it's almost, I don't know if it's a cultural thing around, medical students, you'd be working 12 hours a day. Then, it's just, there was that kind of culture around working overtime and being a little bit superhuman in a way, hey, and not, and I've talked to doctor friends, oh, yeah, I know when I'm tired, I'm fine. It's like, well, you do not really know when you're tired, because it's you should know better than that. It's a medical fact that you don't really know how tired you are, and you can't tell that, self-reporting or self-awareness of that is quite limiting. So, yeah, look, I think it's an issue. How do we get it? I mean, we're getting some interest in some hospitals to look at the problem, but I don't know. I guess tragically, maybe it seems to be, it takes like a waterfall train crash or a major accident, for the healthcare system, and they get, they're having their share of fatalities that I think are getting traced to human errors or system errors or things happening which probably could be fixed. But yeah, just for some of the appetite, and that's where we talked to some hospital administrators about, we can, something we've probably all done is done some support to incident investigations and looked to the human factors issues around accidents that have happened. So, we always said, that's not a bad starting point, because we can at least just help support. It's not a really big job for us, but we can help support your incident investigation and maybe draw your attention to some potential human factors issues that might have been underlying some of the causes. So, yeah, but there's just, not a great appetite for it.
At this point, and you've talked about some future projects that you have got, but I wonder what the next thing for you was, or what the next project is that you are planning on working on.
Yeah, so we've got, I guess as a consultancy, so our work, as I said, we're across those three sectors, mainly healthcare, transport and defence. And and I guess the projects for us or a profession are either, we get a handful of kind of longer term projects where people are sort of working for a client for a period of time. So we've kind of got a few of those, which is nice. And then kind of a bunch of smaller things, and the medical stuff is a bit more of the smaller stuff that comes up. Yeah, so we've sort of got, we've got a good amount of work already lined up for the year. Big ones probably would be around in the railway transport space. So, yeah, there's a couple with the Sydney Metro train line here in Sydney that are looking like starting up. So, yeah, which would be quite cool. So, yeah, because I worked on that back when it was the very first one, the Northwest Rail Link one for Sydney Metro ages back. So I was like technical advisor for human factors then. So, and we haven't done much. We've done bits and pieces, but not much. So, yeah, so they're kind of a couple that are coming up. So they should, that'd be awesome to do.
Thanks for putting the Northwest one in. As a child, I was actually brought up in Castle Hill, and I clearly remember that they were promising a railway network then, and I'd like to tell you that was only 10 years ago, but it wasn't.
A bit longer, hey? Yeah. But no, that's great. That's operating very well, I think. That's a real success story for here. And, so no, it's a good mix. So
curly question for you.
Yeah, great.
What do you think the most important skill or I'll use skill, or attribute is for someone working in human factors and ergonomics?
I would say, empathy is probably one. I think it's the ability to really, see things from other people's perspective and taking that ability. And you sort of see it's an interesting one, like looking at engineers or industrial designers, and we've employed those people in the past, and they can, sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't, but often they're people quite good around designing things kind of as they would use it personally as themselves. I guess one of the great things about our role is the ability to see it from everyone's perspective and make sure that it's going to be fit for purpose for as wide a range as possible as person. So it's kind of that ability to really, and some people just don't necessarily get that, I think, but that ability to really understand other humans really well. And and then it's, then a lot of it's around just great communication skills, liking people. And I think for us, it's, having high levels of integrity and and I guess just a real passion for wanting to do it and make a difference. So, and you kind of combine those things, and it's a pretty good job. Hey, it's
a great job.
Yeah, I love it.
How about the vulnerability? And the reason why I say that is when I started doing these podcasts, I had imposter syndrome because people are working in spaces that I'm not. And I was terrified of looking like an idiot. But then I realised that the dumb question that I ask is actually the dumb question that we ask when we go into jobs we know nothing about.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. I think I saw something the other day that just, it's kind of like, look, everyone's faking it out there to some degree, to be honest. So, and I think, we good at human factors, we know our methods and our techniques and our tools and stuff like that, which is fine, and we need to know those. But we're not going to know, every project we start on, to be honest. For me, it's like a university assignment because, landing craft, I don't know, at the time, but whatever the project is, there's a whole rapid upskilling of technically what's involved with that project. And we kind of have to, we don't have to be technical experts on it, but it kind of helps over time to have that. But it's, there's, as I say, no such thing as a dumb question. And I guess, I think probably the same as you're thinking, the longer we do it, the more comfortable, it's fine to say you don't know and not be the expert on all that sort of stuff because, most people aren't. That's the thing.
And it brings up that really important piece about working with the users and finding out why they do it the way they do it and what those task interdependencies are that change the way they do it. And every job is different, so the encyclopedia is not there.
Yeah, spot on. No, spot on. And that's a good way to look at it. That's we're coming in not as the expert. In fact, it's good that we're not the experts because, that's our job is to ask all those people who are the experts. And, that way we're not carrying any baggage in there. So that's a good way to frame it, actually. Yeah, that's perfect.
Thanks for joining us at the Human Factors and Ergonomics Hub, brought to you by the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia, where human-centred design really matters. If you like this podcast, make us your favourite in your podcast app. We look forward to chatting with you next time.